here's a good example of why you don't just run the government like a tech company, because sometimes government is doing things like Ebola prevention, and when you just shut that off, that could be a dangerous situation.
Just go to doge.gov. We line item by line item, we specify each item. So, and I should say, we will make mistakes. We won't be perfect, but when we make a mistake, we'll fix it very quickly. So, for example, with USAID, one of the things we accidentally canceled very briefly was Ebola, Ebola prevention. I think we all want Ebola prevention. So we restored the Ebola prevention immediately, and there was no interruption.
Oopsie. Oopsie with the Ebola prevention. This is exactly what he said. He said he's just going to shut off money and see what happens.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, hey, some people might die. Some families might wind up impoverished. Some people might end up losing their homes. Hey, can you come back to work? We realize we need you working at the government department we fired you from.
Right. Some guy some guy who's having a baby.
Already happened.
Right. Yeah. Guy who's having a baby needs that 12 weeks leave, not going to get it now.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So at least some of the Doge team said, you know what? I don't want to be one of the people standing in front of the People's Tribunal in 10 years, having to account for what I did as a member of Doge. So I am out of here. 21 civil servants working for Doge resign. 21 federal employees who had been working with Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency resigned, writing in a letter that they wouldn't offer their expertise to overhaul the government if it meant undermining essential services. Quote, "We will not use our skills as technologists to compromise core government systems, jeopardize American sensitive data, or dismantle critical public services," the former employees wrote on Tuesday in a letter addressed to White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. "We will not lend our expertise to carry out or legitimize Doge's actions." The ex-employees, who didn't list their names, criticized the Doge process, saying a day after President Trump's inauguration, they completed interviews with individuals wearing White House visitor badges who declined to identify themselves. This process created significant security risks, they wrote. They said that the firing of 1/3 of the USDS colleagues on February 14th endangered millions of Americans who rely on their services to modernize Social Security, veteran services, and tax filing. Doge's actions, firing technical experts, mishandling sensitive data, and breaking critical systems contradict their stated mission of modernizing federal technology and software to maximize governmental efficiency and productivity, they wrote. Many of the employees who resigned had previously worked for tech companies, said one of the employees who resigned. The employees had served in roles such as engineers, data scientists, project managers, and designers. Their work had spanned the first Trump administration, the Biden administration, and the current White House, the employees said. So this has been justified largely in the public mind. We've heard from a lot of people who've said, I don't care if it's $1,000. Look, all the billions of dollars they're saving. See, this is part of what we've been arguing. You cannot trust anything that this crew tells you. What was it, Keaton? They came out and announced that 2.7 trillion savings that turned out to be total bullshit.
Well, yeah, they said that they had found, what was it, 2.7 trillion in misplaced Medicare, Medicaid, and I think disability expenses. This is a couple weeks ago. Yeah, they came out, they made a big fucking thing of it. Turns out that was cited from an old report by the Government Accountability Office, which is sort of the official Doge, right? Doge, like before right. there was a Doge. So yeah, those were numbers that had been, previously reported on, going back to, I believe, 2015. Put me on the spot a little bit. I don't remember all the details, but the recommendations that they made to cut down on that sort of waste and fraud were, guess what? Denial of claims, of Medicare claims, of Medicaid claims. One of the recommendations was don't give seniors powered wheelchairs, right? like with the implication, what? Give them a cane or a stick, break a stick off
for
a
their
tree.
biceps, the wheeling around.
Well, those are the lucky ones. Go break a stick off a tree. Make them walk with a stick.
It's actually much better if they don't have powered wheelchairs. It's good if they wheel around by their own strength. It keeps them alive up to 6 months longer.
Right.
So this is why you can't trust even what they're telling you in terms of numbers, because they just lie all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Anything that they tell you, you need to go and triple check it.
Anything you see on X that is not hyperlinked, you need to vet yourself. You cannot assume anything you see on Twitter is true unless you vet it. Don't assume it's not true, but vet it. Trust but verify, as they say. Yes.
Musk's cost-cutting drive quietly deletes billions in claimed savings from website. In the latest embarrassment to befall the site, DOGE has stealthily expunged all of the 5 largest items on the wall of receipts after the much-vaunted savings were revealed to be so much hot air. The deletions, first reported by the New York Times, were made on Tuesday without explanation. A White House spokesperson would only say that Musk's slash and burn initiative had identified billions of dollars in savings. DOGE is currently claiming it has succeeded in lopping $65 billion from federal spending, a sharp rise from its earlier figure of $55 billion. Yet the itemized savings listed on the wall of receipts have plummeted since the deletions from $16.6 billion to $9.6 billion. The wall of receipts is the only element of public accountability offered by Musk, the world's richest man, who has been given virtual carte blanche by Donald Trump to probe federal government departments. I mean, if you put this in a comic book, you would automatically know who the villain is.
Right.
The web page.
Well, yeah.
The world's richest man looking for savings in the government. Nothing dodgy there at all. The website is straplined, "The people voted for major reform." What the people have so far been delivered is a saving to the costs of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, listed on the wall of receipts as being worth $8 billion. As the New York Times points out, the entire budget of the immigration agency is about $8 billion. In fact, the cost saving should have correctly been recorded at $8 million. That slip of the accounting pen has now disappeared from DOGE's site. Among the other 4 big figure savings also deleted are 3 cuts of $655 million each to the budget of the beleaguered U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. That sounded impressive until it was covered by CBS News to be a single cut counted erroneously 3 times. The largest of the 5 vanishing savings was a $1.9 billion item listed as a cut at the Treasury Department. That was based on a contract that was canceled last year at a time when Joe Biden was in the White House. Yeah, no, these guys can really be trusted rifling through the government and not cutting anything that's going to come back to bite the American public. Look at the care that they're taking with their receipts that they are proudly displaying. So why are they doing all this? What is all this about? What is the point? Why are they going through the government so desperately looking for these cuts? Here, Ro Khanna, who we mentioned in our previous segment. I am curious how the budget House Republicans passed last night, which adds $100 billion in defense spending and $2.8 trillion to the deficit over 10 years, align with Elon Musk and DOGE goals, or Secretary of Defense's call for an 8% DOD cut, of course, referring to Pete Hegseth's call for that. So this is the thing. They're trying to figure out how they can stuff more money in the pockets of themselves and their criminal friends while actually bringing down the budget. The only way they can do that is on your back. That is what this is all about. House budget resolution tees up damaging Trump tax agenda. The budget resolution passed by House Republicans yesterday will enrich the richest, blow up the deficit, and decimate vital public services. If adopted by the Senate, this framework will allow lawmakers to move forward on enacting President Trump's tax plans through reconciliation legislation that cannot be filibustered in the Senate and therefore can pass without any Democratic votes. The budget resolution allows Congress to pass reconciliation legislation with $4.5 trillion in tax cuts or more if Republican spending cuts exceed the targets in the resolution. That would mostly flow to the wealthiest families in the country. Understand, that's what this is all about. This shit that you're cheering for, this is all about giving more money to people like Elon and Donnie. That's what it's about. It's not about saving America. It's not about making the government more efficient. It's about trying to pass a budget through reconciliation that they would never be able to get through the Senate any other way.
Yes. And that just, I mean, I won't say too much on this because I don't want to step on anything. But that is going to create major political headaches for them unless they tread much more carefully than they are.
Yeah, we'll get to that in the Medicaid section.
Yeah.
Congressional Republicans have no way to pay for the massive tax cuts promised by President Trump during his campaign other than to dismantle fundamental parts of the government and increase the federal budget deficit. During his campaign, Trump talked of offsetting some of his proposed tax cuts with tariffs. Congressional Republicans have largely avoided discussing that idea after ITEP and others pointed out that tariffs would have the effect of a huge tax increase that outweighs any tax cuts for all but the richest Americans. It's not a bug, that's a feature, guys. This is why congressional Republicans have instead fixated on radical cuts in public investments, along with additional federal debt, as a way to pay for Trump's promised tax cuts, which we estimate would cost well over $650 billion in the first year alone. So who benefits? Key bono, who benefits? Well, I bet you could guess. So the 2017 tax law extensions that's set to expire at the end of the year, the tax cuts from 2017, that's going to cost $466 billion.
Ooh.
Exempting certain types of income. Now, this is the thing with, tips and Social Security and so on. But we'll see what that adds up to for the poorest people in a minute. Corporate rate reductions, that's going to cost $41 billion. So the only thing here that's revenue positive is repealing green credits, which gains the government $74 billion. Everything else costs.
Suck it, libtards.
Yeah, so you got to find this money somewhere, right? So distribution of Trump's proposed tax cuts in 2026, share of tax cuts by income group. I bet you're not going to see this coming. Almost all of it goes to the top 20%. 68% of these tax cuts go to the top 20%. The next 20% gets another 17. The middle 20% gets 10. The second 20% gets 4%, and the bottom 20% get 1%. They get 1% of the benefit of these tax cuts. 68% to the top 20%. So what does that mean in real numbers? Okay, so repealing the green credit actually costs people money because the government's gaining money from that, right? So the poorest people, $20. The richest people, $13,160. Now, the things that actually reduce taxes, corporate rate reductions, obviously the poorest, that does nothing for you. The richest will save $7,380. Exempting certain types of income. Now, this is the stuff this is what's going to the people, right? Not taxing tips, not taxing Social Security. So for the poorest 20%, who generally don't pay taxes anyway, that's going to save them $50. The second 20%, 190. Middle, 870. The fourth, 1790. The richest 1%, 3,470, because they don't really work for tips and they don't rely on their Social Security. 2017 tax law extensions. Poorest 20%, 110. Second, 510. Middle, 1,020. Fourth, 1,600. Next 15%, 3,610. Next 4%, 16,630. The richest 1% will save $80,680 on the tax extension. So they come out ahead on Trump's whole tax deal, all taken together. They come out $78,370. The poorest 20%, for your whole year, you will save a whopping $140. $140. So that's what this is really about. Everything that they're telling you about, it's making the government more efficient, or these workers are just, not showing up to work, or they're dead. It's a lot of fucking horseshit to get you to support them desperately trying to find ways that they can cut back government spending to the point that they can pass these enormous tax cuts for themselves and their class through reconciliation, because they know it's going to be a non-starter if they try to pass it with 60 votes. They're not going to get 60 votes for a budget that looks anything like this, right? So as we'll see in the next segment, this is why they want to go after the Medicaid, because it's one of the only places that they can even begin to approach getting the kind of money they would need to pass this through reconciliation. But because they know that, and it's dicey with Medicaid anyway, this is why they're trying to fire all these people. It's not because it's good for the country. It's not because the government doesn't need these workers. It's because they're trying to figure out how to give a tax cut to themselves and their criminal fucking friends. That is what you're cheering for. That is why a workforce that is made up 30% of the veterans, that particularly conservatives, we all care about veterans, but conservatives really like to lead with that and talk about how much they care about veterans. Well, you don't care about these veterans that have a job for the federal government, apparently, because a lot of MAGA voters are cheering for this without considering the consequences and casting it as if everybody who works for the government works for the CIA. And that is certainly not the case.
Well, that's the propaganda. That is how they trick people into cheering this on. And so many people do. I see people, extended family members, talk about how, they really are so thankful for, what's being cleared out at USAID because we pay thousands of dollars a year in taxes, and look at how the government wastes all this money. And yeah, I mean, it is just a distraction. That is what this is. I mean, it's not a brilliant point. Somebody. It's a very simple point. Yeah. Well, yes, you have to scapegoat somebody. And back in 2018, Trump used the migrant caravan, as this big, fearmonger technique. I remember having conversations with people in advance of those midterms, just really getting red in the face, angry about these immigrants who are coming up, and now we have to stop the. Punching sideways and punching down is not going to help you. It is not going to help you. This was a theme of the Workers' Strike Back conference, where you had labor leaders talk about this. You have rank and file union members talk about this. Punching sideways and punching down, whether it's at immigrants or federal workers, is not going to help you. These people have wanted to loot the Treasury for 100 years. They have had a hard time getting political consent to do it. They have an opening now. They have the right people in the right places with tremendous consolidated wealth and outsized power. And this is their play. And the big play is Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, which is going to be our next segment. And even that, they're running into a little bit of political resistance. The question is, do they just go for it? Because this is the biggest opening they've ever had. So sometimes it's just time to go. And we will see whether or not that happens. But I guess that's for the next segment.
If I had to bet, they do. But yes, that's for the next segment.
Yes, I would bet they do too, for the reason I just said. Like, you're never going to have a better chance than now to just do it and see what happens. And, you know, Elon says DOGE is through 2026. So, you know, he's out of Dodge after the midterms. It's not his problem anymore. The hell does he care? You think Donald Trump's going to stand up to him? Look at Donald Trump's body language when Elon's in the room. Elon towers over him. You think Donald Trump is a billionaire, real estate man, businessman? He's also a TV man. He's a showman. He knows what the optics are of sitting with hunched over shoulders and having a guy tower over him in the Oval Office. He knows what the optics are. He knows that doesn't make him look big and strong the way he wants to look. He knows that guy towering over him can get whatever government he wants and still be the richest man in the world after he does it, after he buys it, if he has to. That's why Donald Trump is so cucked to him, because if he turns on him, that creates problems since Elon can buy whatever government he wants. But also, if he keeps Elon happy, any Republicans who give Trump a problem are out. Elon pours $500 million into some district in Indiana somewhere where some problem Republican congressman, and that's it. It's done. Yeah. It's done. That's the power
Elon
he's got.
could go start his own political party.
Exactly.
Run his own candidates.
Yep.
Even if he doesn't win, he'll sabotage all of yours by splitting that vote.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Please clap.